My name is Elaine Marsh, 56 years old, and I have spent more than half my life turning algorithms into lifelines, quiet equations that kept delivery trucks from colliding, planes from circling, and supply chains from snapping. For 28 years, I gave my mind to Crosstech. Today, they were giving me a glass of champagne and a folder. The boardroom smelled faintly of citrus polish and triumph that wasn't mine. Cameras from the internal PR team clicked softly, trying to capture the moment. My boss, Daniel Cross, leaned back in his leather chair, voice smooth as oil. "Sign here, Elaine. All your benefits are guaranteed." He pushed the folder toward me with the same ease he once used to congratulate me for saving his company during the shipping crisis of 2018. Now, his eyes slid toward his son. Leo, seated beside him, 27, fresh from Stanford, a polished smile hiding the impatience of someone who had never been told no. "You're at the age," Daniel said lightly, "and Leo's a perfect fit for the role. You'll still get full recognition. Of course, we'll call it a legacy transition. Legacy. Such a beautiful word for erasure." I glanced at the printed clauses, the signatures already waiting below mine, and smiled just enough for the cameras. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Across the table, Leo raised a flute of champagne. "To continuity," he said. The glass clinked. I signed. Daniel exhaled in relief, the sound of victory disguised as civility. "See smooth and simple," he murmured. "You've made the right choice." I slid the folder back across the polished surface. "I always do." I said. Outside, the hallway felt colder, emptier than I remembered. I left my ID badge on the receptionist's desk, stepped into the gray Chicago rain, and let the sound of it drown the last polite applause echoing from behind the glass. 24 hours later, my phone lit up with missed calls. Then came another and another. In a quiet cafe across the river, I sipped coffee and watched the city move like a living grid. Somewhere downtown, Daniel Cross was shouting into his phone, his voice shaking through the speaker. "This is ridiculous," he roared. "I'll sue you." I stirred my coffee, calm as the rain, and waited for what would come next. 3 weeks before the signing, Daniel called me into his office. It was after 7 in the evening. The rest of the floor was dark, except for the skyline bleeding orange across the windows. He poured himself a drink and smiled like we were old friends. Not employer and employee. "Elaine, you've built something extraordinary," he began. "You deserve a graceful exit. Not everyone gets to retire with a legacy this intact." He gestured toward the digital model on his screen. My system, the one I'd spent 12 years refining. Crossflow, he called it now. As if he'd coined the name himself. "I'm not retiring," I said quietly. Daniel chuckled, sipping his whiskey. "Not retiring, transitioning. Think of it as mentoring the next generation. My son's brilliant, but he needs guidance. I want you to hand him the ropes before you move on. You'll still have lifetime royalties, full benefits, your name on everything. A true legacy deal." I leaned back, studying his reflection in the window. "And if I don't," the smile didn't move, but his tone sharpened. "Then the board reassigns the project without your input. You'd still get your severance, but I'd hate to see your work buried under red tape. You've earned better than that." He wanted me quiet, compliant, grateful. I folded my hands on my lap. "Leo's a bright kid," I said. "I'm sure he'll do fine." Daniel's expression softened again, sensing agreement. "You've always been a team player. Let's make this transition smooth. It'll mean security for you and continuity for us." He stood, offering his hand. The gesture looked generous, almost fatherly, but the weight behind it was a warning. I shook it anyway, feeling the cold precision in his grip. As I left his office, the elevator doors reflected both of us for a brief second, his satisfied smirk. My unreadable face. I said nothing, because silence was the only language he still respected. By the time the doors closed, I already knew what I would do. That night, I spread the documents across my dining table, the same table where I had once graded my daughter's math homework and balanced the company's impossible budgets. The silence felt sharper than any argument Daniel could have thrown at me. The first page was all flattery in recognition of exemplary service, in gratitude for decades of innovation. By page 3, the words turned colder transfer of intellectual property, complete relinquishment of rights, effective immediately. I reached for a pen. When you spend 30 years writing code, you learn that one misplaced symbol can crash an entire system. Contracts are no different. I read every word as if I were debugging a program built to erase me. Then I saw a vague line about benefits being guaranteed upon execution of the agreement. Guaranteed by whom? Under what conditions? I turned the page over and began to write, my hand steady. Ownership of all proprietary software, models, and methodologies reverts to Elaine Marsh if all guaranteed benefits are not fulfilled within 24 hours of execution. A single sentence, neat and quiet, nothing emotional, nothing that would raise a flag. Just logic, pure, clean, merciless logic. I reformatted the section slightly, matching their font and spacing. Years in this company had taught me their style better than they knew it themselves. When I finished, I scanned the contract once more. The amendment blended in perfectly, a whisper in a chorus of legal jargon. At 7 the next morning, I emailed the signed copy to Daniel's assistant, with a polite note, "Please ensure Mr. Cross reviews the final version before execution." She replied with a quick, "Got it, thanks Elaine," and a smiley face. They didn't read it. They never did. Later that afternoon, Daniel called to congratulate me on making the smart choice. His voice sounded relieved. "Everything's official now," he said. I smiled into the receiver. "Yes," I replied softly. "It is." When the call ended, I looked down at my copy of the contract, my signature gleaming under the desk lamp. It was the quietest line I'd ever written and the most powerful. When I arrived at the office the next morning, someone had taped gold balloons to the glass wall of the conference room. They spelled "Welcome Leo" in cheerful, crooked letters. The banner beneath them read, "A new era begins." It was supposed to be my farewell celebration. Daniel spotted me at the doorway and waved me in. "Elaine, there you are," he said brightly. "You made it just in time." He gestured toward the crowd of familiar faces gathered around the buffet table. "We wanted to do something special for the transition." I nodded, forcing a polite smile. "It certainly looks festive." Laughter floated across the room, thin, cautious laughter. My colleagues shifted uneasily, unsure whether to congratulate me or console me. I caught Janelle's eyes from across the table. She looked down immediately, guilt flickering across her face. Leo stood near the projector screen, sleeves rolled to his elbows, confidence radiating from him like stage lighting. "Ms. Marsh," he said, stepping forward. "I hope you know how much I admire your work. My father says your algorithms built the foundation for everything we'll do next." I tilted my head slightly. "Then you'll have your hands full." He grinned. "Don't worry, I'll take good care of your legacy." The words hung there, careless and bright. I glanced at Daniel, who was already raising his glass. "To continuity," he declared, "to fresh energy and innovation." A round of half-hearted claps followed. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my ID badge, and placed it on the table beside the untouched cake. "Before you go," Daniel added, "we'd love one last picture, symbolic closure." "Of course," I said. "Closure is important." The flash went off, freezing our practiced smiles. Leo's arm rested lightly on my shoulder. He smelled of expensive cologne and certainty. As the crowd began to disperse, Daniel leaned close. "You made the right decision, Elaine. You'll thank me someday." I met his eyes, steady and calm. "I already do," I said. Then I walked out, leaving the badge, the cake, and every illusion of gratitude behind me. The morning after the farewell party, I woke to the sound of rain and the quiet buzz of a city already at work. My phone was dark on the nightstand, peaceful. For the first time in years, no alarms, no meetings, no emergencies demanding my mind before sunrise. I brewed coffee and let the silence stretch. By 9, the silence began to crack. The first call came in Daniel's number flashing across the screen. I let it ring, then another, and another. By the time I finished my coffee, there were 7 missed calls. At 11, Janelle's name appeared. I hesitated before answering. Her voice was a whisper of panic. "Elaine, something's wrong. The system's well. It's not responding. The dashboards are frozen, shipments delayed. Leo can't access half the network." I leaned against the counter. He activated it under his credentials. "Yes," she said quickly. "He did everything by the book, but it's rejecting him." "Rejecting him," I repeated softly. She exhaled shakily. "Clients are furious. Daniel's in his office yelling at everyone. He keeps asking if you changed something before you left." "I didn't change anything," I said, which was true. I hadn't changed a line of code. I had only written one. Janelle's voice cracked. "They're saying shipments worth millions are sitting idle across the Midwest. Truckloads stalled, ports backed up. It's chaos." I could almost picture it, the system trying to authenticate a user it didn't recognize, the logic tree looping endlessly because the rightful owner had not yet been confirmed. "Elaine," she said, voice trembling. "Daniel's losing it. He's calling legal. Even Leo's professors. He's already called you 10 times. 21, I corrected quietly, glancing at my screen. "Are you going to answer no?" The rain outside thickened against the windows. I stared at the city below, the roads threading through mist like veins pulsing under skin. My system was doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect itself from unverified interference. Janelle waited for me to say more, but I simply ended the call. Then I turned my phone face down and let it keep ringing. By midday, the storm inside Crosstech was louder than the one outside. I wasn't there to see it, but Janelle later told me how Daniel's voice carried through every floor, conference room. Now he had barked. I imagined him pacing before the wall of windows. Tie loosened, the veneer of composure stripped away. Across from him sat Martin Feldman, the company's senior legal counsel, methodical, cautious, allergic to drama. The contract I had signed lay open on the table, the last page trembling slightly in Daniel's grip. "She tricked us," Daniel snapped. "She hid something in here." Martin adjusted his glasses, scanning the paragraph for the 10th time. "Not hidden. Sir, it's right here." He tapped the final line with his pen. "Transfer is contingent upon fulfillment of all guaranteed benefits within 24 hours of execution." That's the clause. Daniel's jaw tightened. "That wasn't in the original draft." "It was in the version you signed," Martin replied evenly. "The digital record confirms it. She forged it." Martin looked up, unblinking. "No, sir. The metadata shows your assistant uploaded this version at 7:03 a.m., and both parties signed electronically. There's no forgery." Across the table, Leo fidgeted in silence, his confidence leaking away like air from a punctured tire. "So, what does that mean?" he asked quietly. "It means," Martin said, folding his hands, "that ownership of the system never transferred, since the guaranteed benefits were not fulfilled within the time frame. The intellectual property automatically reverted to Ms. Marsh." Daniel slammed his palm against the table. "That can't be legal." "It's perfectly legal," Martin said, his tone almost gentle. "She didn't trick you, sir. She just read the contract you didn't." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the steady patter of rain against the glass. "Finally," Daniel muttered. "Get her on the phone." "She's not answering," Leo said. Daniel turned toward him slowly, his face pale and hard. "Then find a way to make her." But somewhere across the river, my phone remained silent, turned face down beside an empty coffee cup. By the next morning, Leo had locked himself in the operations lab. Screens flickered across the glass walls, each one displaying red alerts, access denied. Authorization failed. The system pulsed with warnings like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Janelle told me later how it unfolded, but I could picture every second of it. Leo sat hunched over the main console, jacket off, hair disheveled. "Run the override again," he barked at the techs. One of them hesitated. "Sir, it's already been executed 6 times. Then make it 7. His voice cracked. She must have left a back door or something. She sabotaged this Janelle, standing in the doorway with a tablet clutched to her chest, spoke softly. She didn't sabotage anything. Leo spun toward her, eyes bloodshot. "You worked for her, didn't you? You must know what she did." "She didn't do anything wrong," Janelle said, walking in. "Look." She placed the tablet on the console and opened the internal version control logs. Lines of code scrolled by, each marked with timestamps, signatures, and authorship records. Every single entry read the same E. Marsh. Leo stared, blinking fast. "That's impossible." She wrote the foundation, every adaptive branch, every failsafe. "It's not rejecting you because it's broken. It's rejecting you because it doesn't know you." He slammed his hand on the table. "I'm the authorized successor." "Not to the code," Janelle said quietly. "It recognizes its creator's logic. It's organic. It learns from her patterns. It responds to her intuition." Leo's voice trembled. "So what am I supposed to do, call her, beg her to unlock it?" Janelle didn't answer. The monitors glowed around them, flickering with endless red alerts, the digital embodiment of panic. Leo sank into the chair, fingers pressed against his temples. "She knew this would happen," he murmured. "Maybe," Janelle replied. "Or maybe she just built something that only works when it's in the right hands." Across town, I sat by my window, the sound of rain steady against the glass. Somewhere deep inside my system, my name was still pulsing alive and untouchable. Daniel finally reached me on a gray afternoon. His assistant's number flashed first, then disappeared, replaced by his direct line. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Elaine," he began, his voice clipped and tight. "We're past courtesy now. You've created a mess. Crosstech's entire network is at risk, and you're legally responsible." "I'm not," I said simply. He exhaled hard, forcing calm. "Our lawyers are preparing to sue. You tampered with company property, intellectual theft, breach of contract, the works. Unless you fix this today, I'll take everything you own." I almost smiled. "You might want to read the contract again before threatening me with it." A pause. "What the hell does that mean?" "Meet me in person," I said. "Bring your legal counsel. I'll bring mine." That evening, the boardroom looked different. The arrogance had drained from its walls. Daniel sat at the head of the table, face pale, hands tight around a folder. Martin Feldman, the corporate attorney, was beside him. I placed my copy of the signed contract between us. "Page 9, I said softly. "Clause 14. Transfer is contingent upon fulfillment of all guaranteed benefits within 24 hours of execution. Since that never happened, benefits unpaid. Pension incomplete, the ownership reverted to me automatically." Martin flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. "She's correct," he murmured. Daniel's voice rose. "You added that after the signing." "No," I replied, sliding my laptop forward. "Here's the time-stamped version your office received before you executed the deal, sent from your assistant's address at 703A, Mem, the day of signing, verified metadata, verified server trail." The room went silent except for the hum of the overhead lights. One of the board members spoke first. "So, legally, the system belongs to her." "Yes," Martin said, "and all derivative code linked to it." Daniel leaned back, defeated. "You planned this." "I prepared for it." I corrected. When I left, the hallway felt lighter than it ever had before. By the time I reached the elevator, My phone was already buzzing messages from clients asking when we could resume operations, this time under my name. 3 days after the meeting, I filed the paperwork. Marsh Systems, LLC. It felt strange seeing my name in bold on the legal header, ownership unshared, uncontested. The next morning, I called Janelle. "You're free of your contract now," I told her. "If you want to stay at Crosstech, I understand. But if you want to build something real, I could use someone who knows where the cracks are." Her answer came without hesitation. "When do we start by the end of that week?" We rented a small floor in a brick building near the Chicago River. It smelled like dust and possibility. I didn't need corner offices or expensive artwork, just a handful of people who believed in precision more than politics. The first call came from one of Crosstech's biggest partners, a distribution firm I had worked with for years. The director's voice was crisp but warm. "Elaine, we've reviewed the news. If your system is operational, we want back in under your banner. It's already running," I said. By noon, 2 more contracts followed. Within 48 hours, Marsh Systems had secured every major client Crosstech once bragged about. There were no press conferences, no dramatic unveilings, just quiet competence. Still, someone from the Chicago Business Journal reached out, requesting a statement. I wrote it myself 5 sentences long after decades of innovation under Crosstech. I have established Marsh Systems to continue advancing adaptive logistics technology. Our mission remains unchanged: efficiency, transparency, and integrity. We are grateful to our partners for believing in the people who build the future. The article ran online that evening under a simple headline: "Former Crosstech engineer reclaims authorship rights." Janelle forwarded it to me with a single line: "Dignity makes the loudest noise when it doesn't have to shout." I stared at the headline for a long moment, the cursor blinking beside my name. Then I closed the laptop, letting the sound of the rain drift in through the open window. The city outside kept moving, guided quietly by a system that finally knew who it belonged to. It had been 6 weeks since I left Crosstech behind. Word spread quickly through the industry: investors withdrawing, clients migrating, the Cross legacy unraveling one headline at a time. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Every morning, I walked along the Chicago River before heading to the new office. The city moved the way I had always imagined it could: fluent, balanced, efficient. My system no longer bore someone else's name. It simply worked, as it was meant to. That afternoon, I sat in the small cafe on the corner, the same place where I had ignored 21 missed calls. The barista knew my order now: black coffee, no sugar. I opened my laptop, answered a few client messages, and watched the rain slide down the glass. The phone buzzed beside me. The name on the screen froze me for a moment. Daniel Cross. I let it ring once. Then again. The sound was softer than I remembered, almost tired. On the 3rd ring, I answered. "Elaine." His voice was hoarse, stretched thin. "I thought you should know. We're closing the Chicago office. Investors want out. Leo's moved to Los Angeles." "I see," I said. He hesitated. "I underestimated you." A pause, then quieter. "You could have destroyed me completely. I didn't have to," I said. "You did that yourself." He gave a small, broken laugh. "You always were the calm one." "Calm doesn't mean weak," I replied. "No," he said slowly. "It doesn't." The line went silent. For a moment, I heard only the rain. Then he spoke once more, barely above a whisper. "Goodbye, Elaine. Goodbye, Daniel." I ended the call, set the phone face down, and watched as the notification light blinked once, then faded. Outside, the traffic lights shifted in perfect rhythm across the river, a silent symphony of movement I knew by heart. I took a slow sip of coffee and let the city breathe. When I finally looked back at my phone, the screen was dark, the last trace of Daniel gone. It didn't ring again,